Welcome to Mindful Escape, the podcast that inspires you to live your best life. My name's Leighton Jewett and I am your host, and today we have Simon on the show. Simon is a healer and runs wellness retreats across Thailand and Jordan. He talks about his journey from being a fashion designer and exploring and discovering meditation. He talks about his battle with the ego, and he also gives some great tips on how to manifest. So this is a really exciting episode, so stay tuned and we'll jump straight in. Simon, thanks for coming on to the Mindful Escape. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, hi Leighton. Thanks for inviting me. My name's Simon. I live in Koh Samui in Thailand, and I am the founder and co-owner of Anahata Resort, which is a detox and wellness resort here in Koh Samui.
Nice. Okay. So this is quite an exciting episode for me because obviously we met here in Thailand and you told me a little bit about your story. So if it's okay, I'd like to just jump back to, let's call it your previous lifestyle. If you can tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you moved into this wellness world.
Yeah, sure. So it's really a kind of quantum leap, I would say, because I was in a complete, I was almost at the other end of the spectrum in terms of my lifestyle and what my purpose was, which was in fashion. I was a fashion designer living in London. So, I moved over here about 10 years ago. I mean, the journey from that life to this life started well before then. I am 57 years old now, so I was kind of like 40 when that journey really started. And I've watched a few of the other fantastic podcasts that you've done, and I was really thinking, okay, how can I make this just a little bit different, which I will endeavor to do, because some of your guests have shared some amazing stories of how their lifestyles have kind of transitioned from one to the other. So I think what I'd like to share about this is more about the inner journey and how let's say the outer experience really kind of mirrors the inner journey. I think I would imagine if you're listening to this, maybe you're in a city somewhere and you're sitting in your office or your apartment or whatever, and thinking, yeah, well, I'd love to live on a tropical island in Thailand and have a retreat center and do healing work, teach yoga or whatever, and then I'll be really, really content, And really, the way that this happens is the other way around. That we have to go on that inner journey before we can even receive and be aligned with that outer journey. So my journey really has been a journey of healing. And as I say, at the age of 40, I really kind of like hit a wall in some ways, not literally, thank goodness, but kind of metaphorically hit this kind of wall. Up until then, my life had been very much about achieving the goals that I kind of set for myself, and maybe at a more subconscious level, the goals that society and my family and culture and everything, etc., had set. And I'd done very well ticking a lot of boxes on that list and achieving a lot. But I was getting sicker mentally, emotionally, and ultimately physically. So that by the time I got to my kind of late 30s, I was overweight and had a lot of addictions. And I think when we say addictions, we think of the most extreme addictions, like serious drug addictions and stuff like that. But I'm talking about the kind of addictions that are also very socially acceptable. Whether those be addictions to substances like alcohol, cigarettes, recreational drugs, but also food addictions, definitely, but kind of lifestyle addictions too, addictions to stress, addictions to needing validation, and these kind of things. And then so I got to, like, as I say, it was exactly 40 years old. And the voice inside of me that I hadn't been listening to just started to shout at me. And it shouted at me mostly through my physical health. And I didn't realize back then that the physical disease that I was experiencing was this kind of misalignment of me and my life with my true self, with my essence, So I started a healing journey, and the first step was at the GP, and that didn't get me too far at all, apart from on a bunch of medication that didn't really work. And then I set off on a journey of exploring more kind of alternative approaches to healing, although that probably wasn't even my language at the time. I was just in a bad place, and I just wanted to get in a better place within myself. One of the first stops on that journey was I was directed towards doing meditation. And I was living in England, and I went to a local Buddhist center and started learning meditation. And that itself was transformational. And not least because I started to connect with people that had different lifestyles to the one that I'd been living. So I was meeting people that were into yoga and healthy food and shamanism and tantra and all incredible stuff. And I really just kind of went on this journey of exploring all of this stuff and all these. Please.
Sorry, when meditation came up for you initially, as that was the first step into this kind of healing, what was your reaction to that at the time? Because obviously you said you went to the GP first, which is most people's first step.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to meditation at the time? Your thoughts on it, your perceptions?
Well, I mean, I think like many people that turn to meditation, I was just looking for some kind of relief, some kind of escape from stress, from worry, from anxiety. But what I soon started to realize through meditation, that there was an aspect of self that was observing the stress, the worry, and everything. And I was like, and as soon as that happened, I was like, so I'm not the worrying and the stress and the anxiety and the cravings and the fears and all these things. I'm not those, because I can observe those. So if I'm observing them, then what am I? Who am I? And I mean, that's the kind of language that I use now. I think at the time I didn't have that language, but that's kind of that's what I was kind of bit by bit starting to get. It was also extremely emotional meditation. I think I one of the things that I'm very passionate about now is meditation and teaching meditation. And at our retreats here, and we have a few other locations now, which I'll tell you about maybe later on in the conversation. But so teaching meditation for me is really, really an important part of what I do. And people start off on that journey and they're like, I can't meditate because my mind's too busy. And I'm like, yeah, that's like saying I can't go to the gym because my muscles aren't strong enough, you know, and you know, we have to start somewhere. And it's not, meditation is not necessarily about having a still mind. Now, if you have a good meditation experience, you may well have a still mind, experience that stillness of mind. But meditation is about observing the busyness of the mind and observing what the mind's doing, and observing also the emotions, the feelings and the emotions, and letting go of all judgment. So something that started to happen to me as I got into the meditation practice back then was a lot of emotions that I had been holding for so long started to come out, you know, and I would literally sit sometimes in tears, sobbing my eyes out. Yeah. So
for people who are listening now, I've started to experience this through my yoga and meditation journey as well. And when I teach classes, I see people going through different emotions, whether that be anger or crying and laughing. It's quite fascinating to see these emotions being released. Could you give us an idea of why that is happening during a meditation?
It's a really good question. These emotions become embodied because, for the most part, when we experience them, we don't know how to deal with them. We're not taught how to deal with our emotions, whether they be extremely painful or even extremely joyful and blissful. At both ends of those spectrums, we don't know how to deal with them on the whole. Yeah, we're very much taught from a young age to be in this very narrow range of emotions, which is kind of, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm well, I'm happy, and not to really show anything outside of that. And also often the emotions outside of that narrow range are kind of are made out to be wrong, you know. So we kind of feel even guilty if, you know, if we feel any kind of extreme emotions. So because of that, we kind of learn how to suppress those emotions. And the word emotion is really just energy in motion. So an emotion is our experience of energy moving through us. So from an energetic perspective, there's no good emotion or bad emotion. It's just energy moving through us. And all these energies have different frequencies. And we need to experience all these different frequencies to be healthy and to function. So being healthy is not being happy all the time or being joyful all the time. It's allowing these emotions to flow through without kind of inhibiting those in any way. But as I say, we don't really learn how to do that. So from a young age, we start to suppress those. And what we're doing energetically is we are halting, we're stopping that flow of energy. So that energy that was moving through us becomes blocked, it becomes embodied. And eventually that can even manifest into what we call a disease, which essentially is an emotional blockage that has not shifted. Now, there are many ways that we kind of naturally release emotions, whether we're conscious of this or not. You know, whether we have a tantrum, whether we cry, whether even we can do stuff like dancing or sport or, you know, yoga. These are things that help us to release emotion. But for a lot of people, our lifestyles don't really allow us to do that so much as we may have done, living more kind of natural lifestyles like we might have done a few generations or more back. Now we live these very contained lifestyles. So, you know, if you think about it, when do you really kind of like dance and let yourself go and let rip, you know, or go singing and chanting and you know, these kind of things where we allow all our emotions to flow. So I've forgotten the exact question, but I think I might have answered it.
Yeah, no, you covered it well.
Yeah.
Just about the why the emotions are released, but yeah, it's just us processing the feelings, right, which we struggle to do.
Yeah, I mean, why they're specifically released in meditation, I think it just brings about this deep relaxation, and the body can just kind of go, and just start to release those energies that it's holding on to. But we can experience that release as re-experiencing the original emotion that was embodied. So we don't even, there doesn't need to be a story attached to the emotion during the meditation. It's just an emotion. So for anyone who listens to this and is practicing meditation, I would really, really strongly suggest that if you do start to feel that kind of emotion welling up during meditation, don't suppress it again. This is your opportunity to release, because that really is fundamental key to your health.
Yeah, it's so important. My therapist always used to say, crying is the best antidepressant, and don't stop it, just allow it to release and get rid of all that stress and anxiety that's built up, whatever it might be.
So important. And I think this also kind of raises something else that is important, that if you're in a situation where you're with someone who is traumatized or who is experiencing that, the last thing to do is to say, there, don't cry, it'll be okay. But actually just to be with someone and bear witness to that and hold that space for them. That is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And as a healer, that's something that I do frequently. And then, yeah, as you say, having a proper kind of cry and release can be so cathartic. Yeah.
On your let's say your inner journey, what we're talking about right now, what was the biggest challenge for you going from this old way of living and perceptions and societal expectations to how you live life now?
I remember the battles I had with my own ego, because the ego back then was still very much attached to the way success was measured by others and needing validation from others. And I just want to kind of qualify what I mean by ego, because ego is not a bad thing. And because I think we often use the word ego as something that's very, very negative. and being egotistical, and in spiritual circles, maybe talking about killing the ego or the death of the ego. But ultimately, to function in this reality, we need an ego. We need a healthy ego. We need a healthy sense of self. But again, for many of us, and certainly for myself, I didn't really have a healthy sense of self. I very much had a sense of self that was founded around other people's kind of opinions and etc. So I think that was probably one of the hardest things, was letting go of that. And I remember there was points during that journey that I literally thought I was going crazy, because I'm like having these conversations with myself, like, let's say the higher self and the ego is kind of like, battling it out. And it's a little bit like those old cartoons where you have like you have the angel on one shoulder and you have the devil on the other shoulder, and one's whispering in one ear and one's whispering in the other ear. And yeah, that was probably the most challenging. I think the family is difficult as well, because when we meet new people, they meet us where we are at that point in our lives. Like, so I met you recently, and so to you, I'm I don't know, you may meet me as being, a retreat facilitator, meditation practitioner, spiritual healer, whatever, but with my family, for example, they've known me since I was a kid. They've known all the silly things that I've done, all the ways that I've messed up in my life and everything. So I think the family can be really, really challenging as well too, when you're transitioning and evolving. And sometimes I think it's disconnecting from the family has to be part of this journey. It's a little bit, it's the story of the prodigal son, isn't it? And it's the saying is that, you can never really be a prophet in your own home. And there's a lot of truth to that. So yeah, those were probably the biggest challenges as well. And I think ultimately, and this kind of like loops back to what I was saying at the beginning, to make such a big transformation into such a different lifestyle and an incredible lifestyle. I live such a blessed lifestyle now. It really is the lifestyle of visions and dreams. But one has to be able to feel worthy of that and to be able to accept that, because that reality, or any other reality that someone might envision, exists. It exists for every single one of us, but you have to come into alignment with that in terms of your self-worth and value. And that it took me the best part of it took me 7 or 8 years to move over to Thailand and to start onto this part of my journey. And I look back, I think, why did it take so long? But that's the reason. I think it took me about that length of time to really heal enough to feel deserving of that, and to allow that into my kind of experience.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's something I think about quite a lot, because for you were living your previous life for 40 years, and the expectations of those around you, the expectations from society to live a certain way. And I remember saying to myself a couple of years ago, oh, can you imagine if I could go and live in a beautiful island near the beach? And in my mind, it just seemed so unrealistic. Like, how could I ever do something like that? And it wasn't until I actually just started making changes in my life and embracing uncertainty and the unknown that actually it unfolded and I could start doing it. But I still have friends today saying, I don't understand it, Leighton. How are you now living in Thailand? It just doesn't compute in the mind. It's like, this is how we live. This is how we're supposed to do things. And this is what we do. But yeah, as you say, once you start learning about yourself and the conditions and healing from that, you can understand that actually there's more than just that way of living life.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I'm passionate about teaching and sharing now is this process of what we could call manifesting. And and the first part of that is the first step to manifesting is actually very simple in theory anyway. The first part of that process is to have a very clear vision and to be able to hold that vision and believe in that vision. And once you do that, and then there are many techniques that we can use to really hone that vision and hold that vision. So we can do vision boards, we can meditate, we can make videos of ourselves from the future, talking to ourselves in the present about the amazing life we're having. There's so many different tools that we can use to help in that process. But once we've got that clear vision, our role then is to receive. And that's it, really. That's the process of manifesting. But I think the problem that most of us have is that our vision changes just like almost moment to moment, if not day to day. And so the experience that we receive back is a mirror to our intentions and our visions. But because our intentions and visions are not clear and steady, what comes back to us feels like we're on this kind of like out of control roller coaster. But it's not an out of control roller coaster. It's just literally mirroring back to you your visions and your intentions. The thing is, unless you're Jesus Christ, there's usually a time lapse between the vision and the intention and the manifestation about it. So we've forgotten that, and we've already gone through many others before they start to kind of manifest for us. So this is really key to this process, is just keeping that clear vision. And I know for myself, as part of that journey that I was on, I explored some shamanism, and I was very fortunate to sit with a shaman down in the south of England who took me on an inner journey, or guided me on an inner journey. And the intention of that journey was to really clarify where I was going. This is about 14, 15 years ago. Maybe not as long as that, maybe 14 years. I don't know, 12, 13, whatever years ago. Anyway, you can edit that bit out. So, anyway, so this shaman guided me into this deep state of meditation, into this journey, and I had this really clear vision of basically what I'm doing now. But I'm still, back then, I'm a fashion designer, living in England, etc. So when I saw that vision, I was like, I didn't know how literally to take it, but something about it just felt so right. And I can still remember it till this day. I can run it like a video through my mind to this day. And that's exactly what I did. After having that experience with him, I would sit in meditation every day and run that like I was watching a movie in my mind. and bit by bit, it's like the universe just kind of brought together all the pieces of that image, almost like making a jigsaw puzzle for me. And so the way that it actually manifested was way beyond anything that I could have planned.
Mm.
Wait, and the kind, and this is, and as you were saying about yourself and how your friends say to you, but how? I mean, I don't really know how it happens. It just happens, and for whatever reason, having that experience with the shaman and that really clear vision and holding that vision was all that was needed. So
Yeah.
long answer to a question, but
Yeah, it's so powerful, right? And
it is.
if we can get that right, then we can live the life that we truly want.
And we can, and we're so, we're taught from an early age that if we want something in life, that we've got to work hard for it. And it takes stress and hard work on all these things. And then we play games at birthday parties when we're kids, like musical chairs, which there's never enough chairs. So we kind of get programmed into this, believing that we live in this world of lack. And there's not quite enough for everyone. So we're all competing with each other. And this kind of belief that it's hard work. And sure, we can achieve a lot like that, but it creates a lot of inertia and a lot of effort, and it makes us very sick.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't live in a world like that. We live in a world of abundance. There's more chairs than there are kids that need to sit down,
I love that
And
analogy.
it's a good one, isn't it? And
Yeah.
the music never stops as well too. We're not on this time is money kind of clock that's ticking. So a big part of making this transition, it's also a transition from that attachment to clock time and money. Not that money isn't valuable or important, and also the perception of security that lifestyle gives. You have to be prepared to let go of the perception of security. And I'm using the word perception as opposed to security because there is no security, but it's a perception. And that's what keeps people locked into that kind of time, money rat race, is that perception of security and what if in the future. Yeah. So if you can let go of that perception and be prepared to live in the moment-to-moment uncertainty of now and just be with that, then that's the freedom, that's the internal freedom that you need to allow the external freedom to manifest.
Yeah, so good. What would you say over your transition was the biggest lesson that you took away?
That it's right to be self-centered, because that means that you're centered in yourself. It's right to put yourself first. And it's right to not care what other people think. And those are all things that we are told the opposite of. In fact, societies are built around putting other people first, caring what other people think. And I would really challenge those as being healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Is there one piece of advice that you would give your younger self before you left the fashion world?
That's a really good question. One piece of advice that I would give my younger self. I think I think after we finish this call, I'll probably come up with a better answer than this, because you put me on the spot. But I think there's that wisdom that we could have when we're younger, but you can't, because you have to have the journey. That is the journey. So I think the advice I give myself is that to stop focusing on there being a destination. There's no destination. It's the journey. The journey is what this is all about. I remember being younger, and whatever moment I was in, I was always thinking about some future moment, as if that future moment was going to be when I would feel happy. And when I got to that point, so it might be owning a new, a new car, or getting a new sale for my business, or whatever it was. And then when I got to that, of course, then there was another new thing for the future. So because of that, I was in this constant, I will be happy when. So yeah, it's about the journey, not the destination. There's no destination.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I'd love to ask you whether having goals and targets affects your happiness. Like, can you have goals and targets without putting that I will be happy when? Or do you think it's better to live life without those set milestones, let's call them?
I think there's a balance to be found here, because we need to, let's replace the word kind of plans and goals and stuff with intentions, visions, dreams, intentions. Allow yourself to dream, allow yourself for your consciousness to expand beyond what you believe is possible, and set that as an intention and enjoy dreaming about it. And yeah, and then back to what we were talking about before, hold that vision and be able to receive that, align with that. It's a different way, isn't it, about going about things. I think if we don't do that, then the risk is that we can end up just kind of like drifting and floating, and which is okay, but we're all here, we're multi-dimensional beings, and we're here. Each of us has a mission, a purpose, and our journey is about discovering that and fulfilling it. And if we don't, we just kind of keep coming back and doing it, which is okay, but gets a bit tiring, doesn't it? So
yeah, it's funny, because I think if you had said this to me about 2 years ago, I would have said, Simon, what on earth are you talking about? But now I completely get you, and I'm thinking, yeah, I need to complete this mission. I need to continue with my purpose, because otherwise I'm going to have to come back and start all over again. But
yeah, so a little mini plug here, if I may. So part of my mission and purpose is to help people find their missions and purpose. So if anyone's watching this and is kind of resonating with what I'm saying and the way I communicate, then please reach out to me, because I think it's probably one of the most burning questions that people have now, or certainly the people that I meet, is like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? And I think that kind of individual journey that so many of us have been experiencing, which is setting out to fulfill those kind of like initial that initial kind of list of what's going to make me happy and fulfilled, realizing that it hasn't, achieving that, realizing that it hasn't, and then then going about discovering what life really is about, which in a way is actually the story of the Buddha. if you know the story of the Buddha, that's the story of the Buddha. And he showed us, that's what he taught. He taught us the way forward. But I think that is actually also happening as a collective now. We've gone through this period since probably like the Second World War through to the early 2000s of ticking all the boxes, of materialism, of traveling, bungee jumping with dolphins, whatever it is. We've done it all. And then, but we're going, yeah, so what now? What's it all about? So this, as I say, I feel that this question of purpose is becoming increasingly important. And my purpose is to help people find that purpose. So,
yeah, I love that. Where can people find you online?
I have a YouTube channel called Simonheals, and what I'll do is maybe give you a couple of links that you could put in the description.
I'll put them in the show notes.
Maybe like an email address or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Righty.
Simon, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you, Leighton. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
And there we have it. Thank you so much for listening. The biggest takeaway for me was around Simon's inner journey and how that relates to everyone else that's been on the show, everyone else that is going through this transformation in their life, how it relates to me and how it will relate to you moving forwards, because essentially it's all the same thing, which is coming into alignment with your true self. As you learn about yourself, as you heal yourself, as you start to love yourself more and understand that you are worthy of a life you truly desire, you will have to go on this inner journey of alignment. I hope you found value here. If you did, make sure you share it with a friend, and I'll see you again, same time next week.